I see one of our guests of honor is here. Welcome in, Fen. We are breaking down 2023 today. It's gonna be. I just literally just threw something together in about 5-10 minutes on Streamlabs. I know it's not gonna be the most fancy stream of all time, but welcome in, welcome in. So we are breaking down all 46 games we beat on one of my streams last year. Um, these are all my opinion based, so just if you like the game more than another, you can go ahead. Always, you are welcome to chime in and give what you think of them. Um, but we're gonna jump in because we have 46 games to go through, and I will be breaking them down little by little for each one. Why certain games are played certain ways, but easiest one for me, last place from last year. We have. Actually, you were not here for that stream as well. It was one of the streams where it was like, I'm gonna try to beat a few quick games on. Most of those are hyphens. My books are all kind of interspaced over on this side of the room. Actually, you can't even see the bags of my books. But last place last year was Burly Men at Sea. It is a interactive experience, not much more than that. So I can't really place it higher because all of the gameplay is you either choose to move your characters left or you move your characters right. I know that's opposite on your screen, but this is where I'm pointing at in my perspective. So every interaction in the game, you either choose to move your characters to the left or to the right, and it tells a very adorable story. And I love the fact that since it's minimalist, all the sound effects are made by someone's mouth, which is actually very, very cool. But there isn't much actual gameplay to this game, so I had to put Burly Men at Sea at 46, last place, because it's not, and compared to everything else we did last year, there's no platforming, there's no intense puzzles or anything else like that. So it's literally just move your characters left, move your characters right, do it. I think there's 12 or 16 endings in the game, and it's just repeating the same things over and over and over again. So in essence, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's not actually a game, in my opinion. So as I said, I'm going to be doing this very like brute force-ish. I don't have anything really set up. So number 45. The 45, what is it, 45 through 41 or 42? 45 through 42 are all the same genre games, but they're going to be broken down based off of uh I'll break them down little by little as we go through, just because like they're not bad. It's just how each one was. There was improvements on story and poor improvements on the puzzles. I preferred some of the voice acting in some of these games a little better. But in last place for these genres of game, we have Demon Hunter Riddles of Light. So the next 4 games are all going to be the hidden objects puzzle games that we played last year. I can't put them above some of the other games because they're the same genre game. It's yes, the puzzles can be very intricate and very interesting, but each one I cannot put higher than some of the other games on this list. So, but in last place for the Hidden Objects games, we have Demon Hunter Riddles of Light. I felt this was the one that had the weakest story. It had some of the weakest puzzles. I did not particularly care for the puzzles that were the choose the right response to a character type situation. Do I want to be this way? No, I want to be this way. But overall, the gameplay for this one I found to be the most lackluster. That is different from, as I said, I'm going to be just strong arming this. I don't know how to make a countdown in general on Streamlabs yet. I literally just threw this together in like 10 minutes. So next up, we have where are you? Oh, it's down here. Next up, we have Christmas Adventure Candy Storm. I put this one a little bit higher, Riddles of Light, because I actually enjoyed the puzzles a little better. The story is still non-existent. You are a person going out to a Christmas festival or party, and you get trapped by a winter witch's magic, and everything in your car gets turned to candy. So that's the story for this one. But I enjoyed the puzzles. Even though the dialogue was not made very well, it still was a little bit better than, I'll move this over. It still was a little better than the story elements from Riddles of Light, which I found just a little too campy, a little too predictable for those games, which is the opposite of some of the games that I actually liked in this genre from last year, which are the next two coming up. So in 43rd, I know, 43rd, properties, browse. Next up, we have a game I think we both enjoyed doing through we have we have Demon Hunter Ascendance. Now, this one was where everything started to branch off. This was the first of the Hidden Objects games that I did last year that I've never played before. So, of course, the one that's in first place is one that I played before, but I actually enjoyed. That's coming up in the next one. But Demon Hunter Ascendance, better story, better twists in the story. The puzzles were engaging. I don't think I was bored with any of the puzzles. I could kind of predict what some puzzles were going to do. This was the one where you were going into the haunted house as like a ghost hunter. You thought like the proprietor of the building was just kind of like joking with you and messing with you, and then it turns out that he was actually possessed by an entity that took his son or something. This was the one that I did right after Halloween. I think I did this one, then Riddles of Light. We both did not care for Riddles of Light. We both were bored by that one. This one was at least engaging with the story. It had a wide variety of puzzles that kind of coalesced together well. There was like a little mini boss battle type situation. Oh yeah, that one. But yeah, this one out of the ones I've never played, I enjoyed. I do have more of these Hidden Objects games, so I'll probably mix them in at some point over the year, but I'm not going to do everything back to back to back. Like, I did 3 of them in a row last year. So that's that one. And then for the last Hidden Objects game, load up. For the last Hidden Objects game, we have a spring. Yeah, if you intersperse them, it's nice. When you do everything at once, then yeah, I definitely get how it gets boring. The last one, looking for C, is this is not the best image for the game, but it's one that was this is the Clockwork Tale. This is when you're that investigator looking into a castle during like the World War I, World War II era, where like the guy's like trying to make a super weapon in a volcano or a mountain vista and everything. But this one is, even though I played this one and I've beaten this one before, I actually platinumed this one right after I finished the stream because I just had to do a few things extra. But the puzzles are engaging. I love the characters in this. The voice acting, it goes everywhere between perfect for like Glass and Ink and the main villain to like cringe-worthy where I'm putting my head in my hands type, but it was still entertaining. But some of the best puzzles. It kind of had some of the best lead ups as well. Like I could figure out where to go point to point instead of like having to like look up a guide in some of the situations, like with Riddles of Light and even Demon Hunter Ascendance. I still had to do that a little bit, but this was my favorite of the Hidden Objects games that we did. So I will try and intersperse a few more. I have some on the computer. I have one more on the PlayStation, and I actually have some on the Switch, so I may intersperse some of those into the streams at some point just to kind of give us a little like palate cleanser of certain things, but I'm not going to do 5 of them in a row like I did last year. I did realize I was getting burned out. Everyone, like viewers, were getting burned out. I was getting burned out. They're fun in small doses, but not when it's like all my channel is. So now we are out of the Hidden Objects puzzles. So now we are actually getting into the actual games. So 41. Huh? Okay, why did you... Hold up, I think I accidentally hit the wrong button here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah, I hit enter instead of Meteor Games. We didn't beat anything that had, like, space stuff. That's a shame. I have to look into, like, space games and stuff like that, where it's like you have to, like, combat meteors or something. Like, hasn't been, like, a modern day, like, asteroids style game in forever where you have to actually, like, shoot stuff down. 41. What do I have? Oh, yeah. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty of different games on the year. My number 41 for me was my weakest feeling for the FNAF series, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. It's the same gameplay from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. It gives you more of the established lore that we know nowadays about the game, but the RNG and basis of this game is so unfair, even compared to 1. Like, there's a lot of glitches and stuff with 1 that you can exploit. This one was literally just... We got through days 1 through 6 in, what, 45 minutes? 50 minutes? And then we got stuck on day 7 for nearly an hour and a half to 2 hours, just because the RNG in that game is, like, non-existent to the player. Like, to the benefit of the player. This one's the most frustrating to me to get through, so... This was my least favorite of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. As I said, I love the basking in the lore, how it was actually a prequel to the other game, so it kind of, like, gave you a little treat of everything from the first game, but then it was also, like... But it was... For me, this was just the most infuriating of the series. It was not as well made. I think it was rushed because I think they were either Scott Cawthon or whoever was promoting him had him rush out the game. It wasn't made very well for consoles. I haven't tried it on PC to see if it's any better on there, but overall this was my least favorite of the Five Nights series. So open. Thank you. Number 40. Let's see, where are you? I know I'm literally just click. There we go. Number 40. Kind of a mixture of a hidden objects game, but it also has platforming and interesting aesthetic, so I really enjoyed it overall over those. We had Stick It to the Man, which was a puzzle platformer mixed with the hidden objects style puzzles. It had a cool kind of like 80s, 90s Saturday morning cartoon vibe. Kind of gave me like the classic Beetlejuice cartoon vibes a little bit. Could be a little raunchy in certain times just because it was not a game built for kids, even though it had that cartoon aesthetic. But it had platforming, it had better puzzles than the hidden object games. That had a more fleshed out story. I actually really enjoyed the story of this game. So, what did I also say? Yeah, so it's not as engaging as some of the other games on this list, but it was still enjoyable because of the story, the wacky characters, but nowhere near... I could not place it higher than some of the other games on this list, so... Come. Thank you. Number 39. Alright, so we had Five Nights at Freddy's 2... already. My number 39 is the first one. I thought the gameplay of this one was more respectable and easier to play than in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Yes, the lore when this one was non-existent. This was just kind of the basis of starting the series. There were good jump scares if you weren't prepared for it. But you could predict and figure out how each character would react, move. So yes, there was RNG, but you could combat the RNG. Whereas in 2, you might have like 4 or 6 of the 10 characters. Is it 10 characters? Yeah, I think it's 10 characters in the second. Is it 8 or yeah, it's 10 characters. You could have a handful of the characters and 2 figured out, but then one character will come in and just wipe out all the plans you had. This one you could kind of figure out, if I have the camera here, this one will be this character will be out of the picture. If I have the camera here, this one will be out of the picture. So you could kind of break down certain characters so that you could fight them and make sure everything was okay. Otherwise, the gameplay of this one still was, you look left, you look right, you look at the camera to make sure. So it's kind of just like a, once the game had a more of a logical aspect to it over like a true horror game for me, it became less exciting. So I can't place this one higher on the list than some of the other games. This is the only thing causing me to slow down, is this one little loading screen to change my number. Number 38. Oh, yeah. The sequel to this game will be higher on this year's list. But this one... Where are you? Number 38, the original Mega Man / Rockman, depending on which location you're at. This game was just too hard to pick up and play compared to some of the other games and stuff that we were playing last year. It took me an hour and a half. I was trying not to do... Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It was just... The platforming elements were incredibly hard. We did one stage in an hour and a half. That was before I started using the save states, just because it was getting too frustrating. Oh, yeah, I can't place it higher. This one was way too hard. Mega Man 2 is probably going to be in a higher position, like, in terms of, like, scale-wise. So, like, whereas this one would be 38. If I had beaten Mega Man 2 last year, I probably would have put it in the teens or low 20s compared to some of the other games from last year. Mega Man 3, though, would probably be up in the same variation, just because Mega Man 2 was the nice balance between difficulty of the platforming and the bosses. Mega Man 1 and 3 were infuriating in terms of how difficult some of those bosses were and how some of that platforming was. So Mega Man 1, I had to put at 38. It's just was too difficult of an experience to really enjoy overall. So next up, an OCD's biggest nightmare and dream job. Where are you? We have Serial Cleaner. This is a game developed by Devolver. You play as a mafia cleaner. So when a mafia hit or a suspicious activity goes wrong, you're called in to clean up before the police can find anything. It was both one of the... It was strangely relaxing once you had everything done correctly, but also one of the most stressful games when you're actually trying to get things done, avoid police officers, and collect all the artifacts that you're supposed to in the game. But it still was a fun gameplay. As I said, OCD's worst nightmare, but also dream, because when you actually clean up 100% of the locations, you have that sense of accomplishment that I was able to do that. And it was actually engaging, learning the puzzles of what each like police officer type did, what each enemy unit did. The twist in the story was actually very well written. It kind of, you could kind of predict it, but it was still just like, wow, this actually happened in the game. But the gameplay is still repetitive. You go around, you do the same thing over and over again. You just have to learn the layouts of the level and all of what each enemy did. So can't really say much to the gameplay. I know they updated it in the sequel, which I still have yet to play and actually purchase. So Serial Cleaners, I think, allows you to have 4 different characters, and I think you can replay missions with each character, so you can have like a varying distinct atmosphere for each level, depending on each character. Number 36, we have... for you. Oh, yeah, I enjoyed this one. I loved your reaction to this one, because you're like, oh, I get the name. But this was actually one of the more fun quick streams that I did last year. We have Foul Play. I actually really do enjoy beat 'em ups. I kind of would love to do this with my brother as a co-op stream at one point. But this was one of the more fun games from last year. It was campy. It had a lot of additional... Thank you. It had a lot of additional little side objectives that you could do. So, like, beat up these groups of enemies without a civilian being injured. I really love the aesthetic, how you always ran into that one janitor no matter what vista or gameplay setting you were doing. It just kind of made the game funny and campy. But once again, it was very simple. It go through, you gain some combos, so it's a standard beat 'em up. So I can't place it higher, but the thing is like, this game being low on the list is not meaning the game is bad. It's just meaning we played so many great games last year, I can't place some of these games higher. But this was highly enjoyable. It took maybe 4 or 5 hours to actually beat. And overall, I had a very fun experience with this. So, Foul Play, great game. Just, I can't put you higher than a lot of the games on this list. Load. I'm gonna keep saying load just because it keeps, like, delaying everything. 35. Oh, yes. This one was on... This is at this level because I was playing on console. This game was just incredibly frustrating to play on console compared to if I had played this on PC. We have Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. I love the setting. I love the characters. I love the voice acting. This game was not made for console, though. If I'd played this... yeah, I know, I can actually think of that. And also Control will be coming up later. Like, way, way later. I love Control. It's like, yeah, it just always showed up at, like, the most inopportune times. The only difference is he was comic relief over, like, a storyline binding situation. If he had been, like, a mini-boss or a secret boss type situation, that would have, like, completely meshed the game together and made it, like, a lot better. But playing Sister Location on console was a bit infuriating, especially with some of the later stages where you had to do some of the really fine-tune... Especially, the most frustrating part of that game is the keypad at the very last section, because, like, I had to adjust my... my thumbstick. The spring lock suit was not the worst part for playing on console. It was frustrating. It was frustrating though because it didn't give me any direction on what to do. I thought I had to shake to get things. I didn't realize that me shaking meant that I was actually breaking everything down and actually causing issues. So that was on me. That one took the longest. That sequence took the longest. And also, thank you for that sequence telling me that if I hit the one option, I can just, like, quick move instead of having to constantly do this, because the motion of that took so long to do. But the most infuriating part about this game was the just the number pad when you're trying to do the baby situation on the very end, because it's such a fine-tuned number pad. On console you will, like, flip right past it. Like, I'm using my mouse, I know you can't see, but it's like I can hit these buttons. I would be able to hit these buttons no problem really, really quickly on the PC, but on the console it was so infuriating. Yeah, because I think you were literally like, don't you have to do this? And I was like, okay, so what button do I press? And then you were like, we took like 4 moments dying to figure out what button to push on the console. Which, yes, that's partially on me, but also the game did not give me any direction on what to say for it. But, lore-wise, I love this one. But I can't put it higher than the other ones that are higher, because the gameplay on console itself was not fair. This is still better than 1 and 2. And if I was playing on PC, I might put this in the same range or higher than some of the other ones, just because I did like the aspect of Sister Location. I did like the comedy of Sister Location, especially with, like, that computer that's like, please enter your name. It's like, how? But this one was probably the most infuriating on console, so that's why it's lower than the other ones that we still have left. Okay. Next up, one of the last games we beat last year, but it was pretty, it was enjoyable. It had a actual happy ending compared to a lot of the games in this genre that I play. Where are you? There you are. Next up, we have Song of the Deep. This was actually putting it back there. This is another one of those games, much like in a game that's going to come later. This was one of the first games that I played. This is like within like the first like 10, 15 games that I played on my YouTube channel back in 2016, 2017. I tried to mix in some like more independent games back then, but me being who I was back then, I was chasing numbers, so I was like, oh, this game's not going to give me... Yeah, this was a beautiful game. I love the aesthetic of this game. I love the aesthetic. I love the environment. The gameplay is fun. The music was beautiful with this. There was a lot of backtracking. Of course, it's like a submarine Metroidvania, which was actually very enjoyable. It was something very different, but it wasn't the most... there were points that were memorable in the game, but it's not the most memorable game from last year. This was very beautiful, but it's not something that will probably... Unless I'm going to go trophy hunting, I probably will not go back to this game. I don't remember what I have left for trophies on this one, so that's going to be the other issue. But overall, it was fun. It was a great experience, especially for a game that I meant to go back to for a long, long time and just never did. So I'm happy with this new mindset I'm doing of I'm trying to beat as many games as possible, but I'm also trying to beat as many games that I've never finished. Now, we did have a few... hiccups. Why did you... I didn't hit enter. Hold on. Delete. Thank you. There you go. I keep, like, hitting enter on accident, which is adding a space. Next up, though, we have... Oh, yes. Okay. This was very pretty. It was enjoyable, especially if you like puzzle games, which I know we both do. But it was very existential. It just kind of like insisted on itself in a lot of situations. The Talos Principle, great puzzle game. Made me think really, really hard in a lot of aspects. I think I only use a strategy guide. I think you were there for me. I think I've only used a strategy guide twice through the whole thing. Like I had to kind of like rack my brain around things, and it was like this puzzle is impossible, or I figured it out but I didn't know how to do some of the actions just because the actions were so esoteric with it. Yeah, I haven't played the sequel yet. I heard the sequel's a lot better, but it was trying to be Portal but adding a religious undertone to it, which it fit the concept of the game, but it didn't transfer well to me. So it's not a bad... Like I said, none of these games on this list, in my opinion, are bad. Even the Brilliant Men at Sea, I enjoyed that, but I can't consider it a game with that one. That's the only reason why that one's last. But like this one, it was just insisting on itself with a lot of the undertones of what the game was like, the subliminal messaging, as you will. But this one, it was enjoyable. I loved the puzzles. The puzzles made you rack your brain. I just think if it didn't force a lot of the extra stuff, which I guess is what the concept of this game is supposed to do. So I'll have to play the sequel to see how that one feels, but I'm placing this one this high just because, or this high, low, whatever you want to say, just because it's not my favorite game from last year, but I was really interested in it. So I'm happy we did it, but I don't know if I'll go back to it because there's a lot of more stuff to find, but I don't know where to even start. So I don't want to make my brain hurt again. That being said, we'll probably be playing some more puzzle games in the future. Next up. Back to back. Yeah. These two... I'm going to say both of them are 32 and 31. Because they flip-flop, depending on what mindset I had for that day. So... No. That's actually a very perfect way to say that. I appreciate you worded it a lot better than I did, and I appreciate that. It was just trying to push too many agendas into one situation, and none of them translated well together. Now the environments were really cool, and the puzzles were really good. But the extra content and the other principles they were trying to push, hence Tails' principle, yes, it just didn't meld well together. As I said, number 32 and 31 can be flipped depending on my mindset for the day, but I'm going to go ahead and put them how I have them on my list. You can kind of guess which ones they are by what the next one's going to be. We have... Oh, invisible. We have Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This was one of the first ones that actually gave me a sense of dread. And I had that, the extra, it gave the extra lore of what happened in the past. You kind of learned about some of the situations with like Springtrap and like the main character and what happened in like the history of the company that you're the Fazbear Industries and everything else like that. But it was the implementation of actually having to use the cameras. Like the cameras in 1 and 2 were like inconsequential except for spamming it in 1 to keep Foxy or Freddy in place, and then having to have the camera open in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 to keep the puppet sleeping was the one thing. That was the only element that you really... If you didn't have the puppet in 2, the camera was inconsequential. You would just kind of have to look into... This person can come from here, this person can come from here, this person can come from here, and then you listen. Everything else was inconsequential besides the puppet. If the puppet was not in 2, I would have been able to beat Night 7, no problem. The RNG with that, I would have been able to figure out. It was the concept of, you have RNG, you have to have the camera open, you have to wind the music box. That was the only reason... Yeah, FNAF 3 and 4 are going to be the next two. It depends on the mood. The FNAF 3 had more of a visual horror aspect that you had to pay attention to. And I'll go ahead and go to... I'll go ahead and just show 31 because we'll talk about both of them at the same time. I did not set it up to have both of them at the same time, so... Yeah, so 32 and 31, we have FNAF 3 and FNAF 4. Both of them actually were the ones that actually generally terrified me. I think I jumped out of my seat in FNAF 4 at least 2 or 3 times on stream. I've yet to beat these on like the difficult night mode. But FNAF 3 had the visual aspect where you had to constantly track Springtrap, use the little audio clues to kind of trap him into different rooms. So it was actually a lot more strategic in that one. That one had the best strategy of its gameplay because you actually had to plot out like, okay, if he goes here, I want to move him here, I want to block this, and we'll do this. But at 4, as an audio guy, that one was the most impressive because there's literally a mode if you beat this where you can play it blind. Like, the screen's black and you just use the audio clues in the game. That's how important audio was in this game. And yes, we did jump a few times because it took us a few times to learn what cues were we looking for at the doors, at the closet, on the bed, and everything else like that to make sure, like, oh yeah, we're not going to be trapped and tricked by anything like this. So it's just like, that was these two games were the best in the series that I've played so far. I haven't played Pizzeria Simulator Ultimate Custom Night. I haven't played Security Breach or its DLC. I don't know if they're making any more. I don't think he's making any more Five Nights stuff. Yes, no, that is very true. Because the first one was making the game basic. So you saw the breakdown of you're gonna look left, you're gonna look right, you're gonna see the progression of the characters on screen. The new one was just okay, so I'll have to look into that. So you look left, you look right, you have all the implementation with the cameras, which in the first 2 games, as I said, the camera was kind of pointless to have. The second game, they tried to up the ante by adding more characters, but the RNG of that game just made the game unfair. Hence why I placed the first 2 where I did. The third one, as I said, was the first to have a strategic element with the camera, and the fact that there were other elements that would mess with you made the game made that part of the game a little more stressful, because it's like you would lose the oxygen, you would lose the camera feeds, you would lose the audio stuff, so you constantly it was a constant like back and forth of, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. 4 was another one that was similar to the first two with the timing stuff, but the implementation of the audio and the character models in this one were far more terrifying than the first one. I think by the end of the Five Nights at Freddy's one is like, oh, I'm gonna get jump scared. Yeah, 4 in my opinion is the best one. 4 actually made me jump no matter what happened through days 1 through nights 1 through 6, because we never beat 7. Whereas you saw me in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2, it's like, oh, I'm gonna get killed, and I'm literally just like, okay, if I put the camera down, it's gonna be something jumps at me and screen. It's like, whereas like 3 or 4 times Five Nights at Freddy's 4, you guys literally saw me jump out of my seat. So I can give this one praise for how well it was done. But still, with how the concept of the game is, I can't place it. Yeah, the death screens do not get stale in 4. I do want to play some of the others, but I'm not going to, like... Whereas we played 1 through 5 for the 5 nights in, what, 2 weeks? Because I was on vacation. I was getting ready for my anniversary vacation. So, that did that. Okay, what do I got? Oh yeah, this is adorable. I did love this game. I can't place it higher, but I do love this game. I would love to try to play this multiplayer. Where are you? There it is. Love this game. This game never got old while we were playing it. It got more difficult, it got more stressful, but that was the point of this game. This was one of the most adorable games that we played last year, and the gameplay was solid. The gameplay was straightforward, but it kept adding little... I know, I love this. It was straightforward, it kept adding little more and more elements to the game each time you played a stage. I'm imagining, though, with some of those stages, how difficult this is on co-op, because there's so many elements. It's like you have to do things simultaneously. It's not just like, I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna grab this. You have to grab them simultaneously and put them down at the same time, do some of those elements, which was difficult on single player, but since I was on my own, I can control when the simultaneous actions happen. When you're playing with another player, which I hope to do in the future, you have to actually, like, okay, 1, 3, 2, 1, and it's just like you have to like plan out some of those things. But this was highly enjoyable. I thought this was the most adorable concept of a game I've ever seen. You run a post office as 2 little Kiwis. You help out the cassowaries, the octopus, the I can't even call him the postmaster, because technically we're the postmasters. I don't know what the guy is. What the point of the guy is? He's just like the head of like running the building, making sure it stays afloat. But even then, you're helping with that at certain points. But this was adorable. I absolutely love the concept of this game. Once again, can't place it higher just because the gameplay is what it is. I can't change that, but it is just too cute. Like, there's not enough games like that, where it's just, I'm playing something cute, it can still be difficult, but... Well, I guess another Crab's Treasure for this year would be that one. He's the front man. Okay. 20. Yep. Okay. Next up, we have Rip and Tear. We have Doom 2016. Oh god, you're huge. I didn't know this image. Hold on, I need to actually unlock this. Oh my god. Okay. Sir, why are you... There we go. Speaking of a frontman, we have the Doom guy. Doom 2016. This is the second or third game I tried to play on my channel back in 2016. So much like another game that's going to come later on this list, this was a big accomplishment for me actually beating this game. The amount of brutality and visceral violence that's in this game is a little bit over the top, but it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a power trip. It's supposed to be the lone man versus the waves of hell, literally. and coming out on top feeling like a badass. This was a great game to feel like a badass, but the sequel, which will come later, still trumps this one. Still beats this one in every aspect because the weaponry is better, the abilities are better. We'll get to that later, but this was a great game in my opinion. It was fun. I'm sad it took me this long to beat it, much like some other games on this list, but this was a fun experience for me when I played it. So, next up, lock. What's that? Number 28. Oh, fun game, fun game. Like I said, like, these games being this far down does not mean the games weren't fun. It's just there's better games than them. Next up, we have The Deadly Tower of Monsters. Probably one of the funniest games that we played last year. I adore this game. This game was the game that trolled every single thing that I would do in a video game when I'm bored. This was great. Because I'm the person that, like, you see me in games where I'm playing and I randomly just spin my characters. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for something to load. I'm just going to spin my character. And then they made a comment on it. This was one of the best experiences for a game programmed to troll its players in every aspect. I loved this game. This is another game that was, I think this was 2017 or 2018 when I first tried to play this. So, once again, going back, playing some games that I've been meaning to play. This one was just so right field in every aspect, but it worked perfectly. You could see the wires on anything that was flying. You had claymation characters fighting you. You had the over-the-top acting from the villains and the main characters. You had the very, very pompous, over-the-top, completely into himself director making the commentary through the entire games. It's just every aspect of this was so well thought out for being like, I can't even say a B sci-fi film. This is like a C or a D level sci-fi film, but it works so well together. Also, all the weapons are just regular household items that they kind of merged with other things to make them look like they would be sci-fi. I thought this was just like a perfect blend of comedy in a game. There are some other comedy games that I think I'm going to play at some point, so something like The Bard's Tale or something. I have a few that I'll have to look into. I do want to add some more comedy into my some of my streams, but this was one that actually made me, I think I busted out laughing like 5 or 6 times in one stream. I think we did three streams of this, only because one of them got cut off because my internet cut out. But this was a great experience. Once again, can't place it higher because some of these games that are going to be in, like, say, the top 10 or a little bit higher than that are just really special to me. They gave an experience that is unlike anything else. This one, for the comedy aspect, was like nothing else, but it is an isometric action game, which I do like, but are plentiful in certain situations. Next up, after that, we have the least favorite of a series that we played last year. We have Darksiders 3. This was the weakest link, in my opinion, in the Darksiders series, and I think it's when the downhill, the series started going downhill for its players. This was, I forgot who developed this. This was the company's attempt to merge this game concept and design and merge it into a Soul-style game, which sounds like it would be beautiful, but I think it was too forced with this one. Also, out of the 4 Darksiders games, this one has the least desirable and liked protagonist. She was too narcissistic, there was too much aggression. I know she's Fury, but it took like 5 streams for me to actually start caring about anything that she was doing. Whereas I love war, I love death, and then when we get to the Darksiders Genesis, which will be in our my top 10, Strife is awesome and hilarious, and I loved him from the opening cutscene of that game. She rubbed me the wrong way right from the get-go. and it took forever to actually start to like her, to enjoy her company, to want her to win her victories and everything. Whereas, yes, I'm playing as her. I want to win the game and beat the enemies, but I'm also just like, do I care? This was the weakest link in the Darksiders series for me. Um, but now for some. Now for some placements that might get me like, what? How can this be this low? But for me personally, the next one, I actually had to like break down and actually move some of these numbers around. Number 26. I mean, she's a horsewoman of the apocalypse. Are you meant to like? But that's the thing, though. It's like, I love the aspect of each of the other horsemen. War is stoic and like that honorable warrior that wants to do things by the book and by the code. So you have that like trust that he's going to get the job done and he's going to actually protect everything. War has that bond between the brothers and Fury that like he's the big brother of their group that wants to like make sure everyone's okay. He'll actually go out of his way to protect. He'll destroy an entire realm and a bunch of demons and angels to get what he wants, but he's doing it to help protect his siblings. And then Strife is pretty much Deadpool in this universe. Fury was just the narcissistic aspect of her was what really drove it. She was just all up into herself. She was blinded by her own she was blinded by everything, by her pride, by her wrath, by her she fought the seven deadly sins to learn to let go of some of her sins that she was projecting. Like, she didn't really have greed, she didn't have a lot of gluttony. It was just the aspect of how her character was designed was unlikable compared to the other three. That was the issue. It wasn't the fact that she was just unlikable. It's you had the aspects of the other ones that you've seen, except for Strife at that point, that made them a desirable hero. You wanted to see them succeed. Whereas Fury was just, putting it bluntly, she was a bitch right from the beginning. Number 26. This, I don't know if you're gonna give me flack for this because I know you enjoyed some of these games. You probably would have enjoyed more than I did. But I can't put some of these... Where are you? Ah, there you are. Next for me. Number 26. Wow, that one's tiny. No, that was the thing. Like, she had to learn to control her rage and everything like that. So it was actually a good story lesson, but it made you hate her from the get-go. And then you had to learn to like her. Whereas other ones, you kind of had that, like, I trust you, and I want you to succeed moment with each of these. But she was just the least likable of the heroes, unfortunately. Next up, we have Pokemon Legends Arceus. I thought this was really great. I thought it was a different direction for Pokemon that they should go on to, which I think they're doing another Legends game, so there's probably going to follow the same similar situation. I hope. I love this open world aspect. I love the fact that you don't have to fight every single Pokemon to catch them. There's the stealth elements. There's the I'm going to hit you with a little pebble to like make you all dizzy, and then I'm going to throw the Pokeball instead of just having to go and, oh look, there's a Pokemon, let me go and fight it with my Pokemon. You can choose to do that to level your Pokemon up, but you don't have to. There was, for this one to be higher, there was just a lot of the little technical issues people kept talking about. The environments could be a little bland. I know it's their first foray into actual open world, so congratulations on them for changing on this. It's just people complained they wanted open world, and they complained it was too open, not enough in it. So they went back to some of the elements with Scarlet and Violet that were like the originals. They don't know what they're trying to do. I thought this was a great outing. I love the environment. The story was great. The characters were spot on in my opinion. I love the little fact of you had the great Kamado, who always had the outstanding voice, all of a sudden gets scared in the final cutscene and actually just drop it and have a country accent saying, like, we need to get the hell out of here. I thought that was very good character development with that one. It's just, I hate to say it, it's a Pokemon game. I'm not going to say Pokemon game's in my top 10 unless they do something groundbreaking, outstanding. I can't put a Pokemon game higher than some other games on this list. So for me, this one's at this point. It's still relatively high compared to everything else. So I mean, we had 20 other games behind this one. So that's not bad, especially considering some of the games that are ahead of this one. For me, are just like some of the best games I ever played were last year. What were we at? 25? Only 25. That. My little notebook that has all my notes is trying to, like, go. It was a fairly new concept, untested waters. Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. They were trying to do something different, which people were asking for. But they did it in a way where not as many people were wholly excited about it. But I mean, they did a good job. Everything they were trying to do. I think if this was as you put it, as a fairly new concept, untested, if they had tested this out and then implemented it into a later game, like if they never made Arceus and they tested this for a long time and then put this concept into Scarlet and Violet, I feel Scarlet and Violet would have been better, because you would have had a little bit more of the open world vibes that you would have been prepared for, but it was just unfortunately not what everybody was hoping for. Next up. Yeah, there we go. Next up, we have... Wow, that is tiny. Some of them are giant and some of them are huge. I can't test these images, and I'm trying to lock that so I don't accidentally move it. But we have the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake. This was a whimsical and adorable retelling of the classic Game Boy game. With a lot of quality of life upgrades. You can now have more than just 2 items on, so like your sword and your shield are always accessible, and then you can have the boots and the rock feather on, so you can have like the jumping situation. You don't have the constant, like the original Game Boy, you only had 2 buttons. You had to constantly change between sword, shield, any of your accessories that you needed, whereas this one you always have access to the sword or shield while you implemented the other items for puzzles. So that was a good quality of life upgrade. As I said, the animations and the graphics of this were absolutely adorable. It was like a little toy diorama moving your characters around. This was a great way to implement this game, because this will be forever, like, this will never look bad. Like, you can go years and years down the road in graphical upgrades, this will still look good in 20... This is how, like, Super Mario World is nowadays. Super Mario World looks as good as it did in, 1995, as it does now. Whereas you compare, like, Super Mario 64, which looks... If you have a Super Mario 64 on the N64, it looks like a grainy mess, because it still was, like, the birth child of 3D graphics at that point. The concept of them using this over using more realistic models, this will look fantastic forever type situation. So, in comparison to a lot of the other games that we have on this list, upbeat, lovely. It was a fun experience. It wasn't very long as well, once we got into it. So, I congratulate that. Next up, another game that scared me out of my seat. Thank you. And another game apparently we want to try and have me play again, but with additional challenges. We have Alien Isolation. This is the game that made me jump literally out of my seat. Like, I actually went to the floor in one of the sections, and my father-in-law had to ask me if I was okay during that video, because he heard the crash. This was a great experience. This is probably one of the better horror games in terms of AI. Actually, I learned something about the AI in this game that was really, really impressive, and I didn't realize it until the Alien's AI in this game actually has 2 points of AI. One that knows where your character is at all time, and one that doesn't, but is given hints from the other AI. So, like, in those points where it's like you try to hide in a closet for, say, 3 to 4 minutes because you know it's still out there, it's getting clues that you're in that closet. So that is an amazing set of technology with that. It is probably one of the best original stories off of a intellectual property. No, the AI is phenomenal in this. And when you start getting multiples, that makes it even worse. But this was one of the scariest experiences that I did last year. I could actually probably say it was probably the scariest experience. Like Five Nights at Freddy's was scary, but it was kind of more like can't be jump scares. This one set you on a vision of dread when you were just going around. And it wasn't just the aliens, like the androids, some of the human characters made you uneasy. This was just an experience like none other in a video game. It was a beautiful rendition of anything that was from the Aliens universe, but this game didn't hit the same as some others on this list. So this was great, but I actually chose another game over this that might shock some people, but with how many times I actually tried to 100% this game last year off stream, I adored this game. From the graphics, from the story. This was one of my favorite indie games from last year. We have Bramble the Mountain King. I loved the aesthetic, the beauty of this game, but it also could turn on a dime from being beautiful, gorgeous, picturesque storybook to a dreaded horror nightmare dreamscape in like literally a second. It had some of the most disturbing sequences in gaming that I've ever seen, but the visual aspect, the gameplay, except for some of the platforming, I loved this game. Like, I loved the fact that I could do... One issue I had with this game was that it lost my save file, if you remember that. That was the only thing. I got to a certain point, I loaded it up, and I was like an hour and 45 minutes behind where I was the previous day. So that was the only issue that I had with this game, and I did not know about it until I started streaming. But I loved the aspect of this game. I am one trophy away from platinuming it, and I don't think I'll beat it just because of how difficult that trophy is. There's a no-death run on this game. There's so much little nitpick things that can happen to your character, and if auto-saves, which is the issue. If there was a way where I could turn off autosave and just do manual saving, and I could load up an area on my own, that would be fine. There are supposed to be backdoor ways on the PlayStation to do that, but I just find that to be too much work. Yeah, Deathless on this is unfair. Like, even the final boss, like, I figured out the final boss's patterns, and I still died twice just because all of a sudden, like, the thing just went, oh, you're over here. I'm like, no, but you were going that way. That's why I ran this way. So, it's a little unfair for the final one, but for the story, for the graphics, for the music in that was incredible. One of the most disturbing games that I played last year, but also one of the most breathtaking and stunning games that I played last year. So it's kind of counterintuitive with everything that was did with Bramble, but I loved it. Number 22. One of my favorite games of all time. One of my favorite games that I played last year. One of my favorite games that I played for fun at one point. Mario! We have Luigi's Mansion 3. I thought this was a great Switch title. This was fun, it was endearing, it was campy. It's always great when you have that hero character that doesn't want to be a hero, but he does it because he wants to help people. This was a very fun experience. The levels just keep getting wackier and crazier with each level of the hotel. You go from being in the opening, like the open villa of the hotels you wander in, and the concierge desk is there. All of a sudden, you're in a pirate's cove. You're in an Egyptian tomb. You're in Reluctant Hero Luigi for the win, always. But this was probably one of my favorite. Like, I can't put it higher because the game is not gonna be the one that like blew me away, but this is one of my favorite games. I've beaten this 2 or 3 times now for fun. In a TARDIS like, exactly, in a TARDIS like hotel. Aren't they all kind of like TARDIS like for the Luigi's Mansion? Well, except for the original one. But isn't like I I haven't played Luigi's Mansion 2. That's Dark Moon as well, too, isn't it? The same thing? But... And now we're getting to a series type that I beat a lot of them last year, and it's the reason why some of the other games are so high. Next up, from last year, a game that I struggled with for a year and a half on my channel. I have not played 3 co-op. I want to play 3 co-op. Next up... Where are you? Wait, where's... I am missing a game on here. Oh wait, no, there it is. Okay. Next up, my first victory of this game came last year. I've been trying to beat this game for over a year and a half when I finally beat it last year. The beginning of my Souls run from last year. We have more of them coming up later on in the video. This was the first game of this genre to implement such a massive open world that you could kind of like explore, wrap around. All of a sudden you find shortcuts to different locations. The bosses are incredible for most of the game. It does have a few bosses that people place at the bottom of the list. Considering I haven't played or beaten Elden Ring, I can't do a true Souls ranking for the bosses yet. That would be kind of interesting to do like a ranking. I guess I could do game by game to see how that, if people are interested in how I feel about some of the bosses. But can't place this one higher. This was the one that set the curb for a lot of the Souls games that came out later, but it's still some of the controls are a little janky. It's the first one. I still haven't played 2. I've heard that one's even jankier, but we'll have to find out about that. But this was fun. It was memorable. A lot of the boss sequences are just like, whoa, what the hell is going on? But it is what it is. It was a fun game. I enjoyed it. I actually rebeat Dark Souls 1, 3, and Bloodborne for fun already this year, so I've gotten really used to the games now. Number 20. One of my favorite games of all time. I had to place it this high, though, because I've beaten it multiple times, and it's always going to have a soft spot in my heart, but I can't place it higher than the other games on this list. We have... Oh, this one's tiny. We have Star Wars Rogue Squadron. This is one of my favorite childhood games. This is one of my favorite N64 games. I am a huge Star Wars nerd, especially in the classic story arcs that were written, which kind of why I get annoyed with some of the new Star Wars stuff that comes out. But this was the biggest like Star Wars power trip you could have at this point. You have all the ships you could possibly think of, except for the B-Wing, which came out in the sequel, which I still have. I actually have it, but I don't have it out. But this is one of my favorite games of all time. It's a fantasy trip. You can play as any ship on most missions. Some of them are going to put you at a disadvantage. You need the Snowspeeder if the level is going to have an AT-AT. I say that, but you can go through a mission playing as an X-Wing, a Y-Wing, or some of the others, but you're going to be using all your armament on one freaking AT-AT. Which I guess if you have the I give up cheat on, that's fine. You just constantly bombard it with everything and then hope for the best. But can't place this one higher just because the original one did not get a remake, unfortunately. They remade the second one, I think. Because there's Star Wars Rogue Squadron, there's Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, and then they made Rogue Squadron 3, which had I think it had levels from the second game remastered with updated graphics and more missions and stuff like that. But I never played the third one, so I can't actually guarantee that. I wish they would remake this. I would love if, say, like, Blue Point or anybody like that, because, like, they remade the Star Wars Racer, they are trying to remake KOTOR, everything else like that. If they remade Rogue Squadron, I would be absolutely ecstatic. The main issue is that the game company that made the Star Wars Rogue Squadron games and a lot of other great, like, pilot simulators and stuff like that, they went under the PS3. They were having legal and financial issues, and then when they made Lair and they were forced to implement the motion controls on the PS3, the game flopped. Even though they made it so that you could just play it normally in the end, they weren't able to combat that. So, unfortunately, the company that made this game did go under. Not their fault, of course, like many other games, but it happened, which makes me sad. We're in the top 20. We're making great progress, actually. Number 19, page turn. Could be a shocker for some, could be placed perfectly, but I have number 19 being the RE2 remake. This was a very fun game. Let's see. It's I'm just trying to like. So it is probably one of the best remakes over the last few years. It has the same nostalgic feel that the original game has, but with updated characters, updated combat. You can craft, you can do all the things from the newer games, but it implemented it in the classic story. And then the implementation of the terrifying Mr. X, which I feel is better, from what I've seen, gameplay-wise, is a lot better than the remake of Nemesis. So I will have to do that later this year. I still want to go through the rest of the Resident Evil series. I will play them all, even 6. Probably do the numbered one first, and then we'll try to do some of the other games later. Big news from a Resident Evil leak. Apparently 2 Resident Evil games are being remade, and they are not main number games. So the games that from the rumor mill are that Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil Code Veronica X are the next one to get a facelift. And now for number 18, we have our first wife quit encounter. And honestly, this one is this low just because I've beaten this game so many times. I do love it. But I can't place it higher than other games because some of the other games on this list just made more of an impact on me this year. Or last year. But coming out in number 18, in 18th place, we have Mass Effect 3. Shepard. Yep, it's our first wife quit game because she wanted me to include any game that we beat last year on the channel. She insisted that any game that we beat on, so the wife quit games were included on this list. So we have this one and one other game for last year. I don't know how she feels about it, but she also have to remember we only beat 2 games on a wife quit last year. Granted, we only did 1 or 2 streams a week with her last year. So, and this year is even less just because she's got the one day that we have to really, really do it this year, is also the day she has her longest shift. So, it is what it is, but this is an amazing end to the original trilogy, except, unfortunately, the ending is still kind of a little blasé, but some of the best set pieces, some of the best bosses, some of the best dialogue, some of the best DLC and gaming for this game. But I can't put it higher for how some of the other games that we play. Once again, it's not that this is a bad game. It's just this one didn't make me have feelings like some other games that I played last year had. This is a great game. It still has moments that make me tear up. It still has moments that give me an adrenaline rush, but it's still, for me, it's not better for what I experienced on my own last year. There is one more wife quit game that I feel is a much better experience for what we were doing last year. You'll know which. Yeah, Mordin always makes everyone cry. There's other sequences in the game if you play different pathways that can be even worse. Samara's death, if you do certain things wrong, is even more heartbreaking, in my opinion. But that is where I'm placing Mass Effect 3 for me, for everything I did last year. So, once again, it's not a bad game. I just can't place it higher because I've beaten it before multiple times. I think when we were streaming it, that was our 3rd or 4th time playing it already. Because we had played, I think we beat the series, the entire series in one run when we had COVID back in 2021 or something like that. We actually almost beat the entire trilogy while we were sick. So this one, I had to keep like, so what is this one again? Where are you? So, upping Resident Evil 2 by just a little bit for the remake, we have the Dead Space remake. This was an amazing, almost one-to-one experience of the original game with some quality of life upgrades and a few extra side missions. But other than that, the game followed a lot of the pathways from the original game nearly perfectly. And I'm really impressed with what they were able to do with a lot of this game. They added some elements of the story that made a little bit more sense. They added some extra character dialogue. They made a part of the ending made a lot more sense of like why the situation with you seeing Nicole throughout the ship and then like you wondering like how is this possible if like the original ending was she just vanished and you were just like, oh, she was never here to begin with. Now in the new one, you had a character that had their own side story on this, their own side story that was intermingled with yours, and then that made a lot more sense with what was going on. But it was still a lot of the same situations from the first game, so you kind of had a nostalgia element, but you also had to relearn certain things. The cannon sequence was a lot more readily available, so like you didn't die instantaneously trying to calibrate those guns. You had moments where you could actually do everything. But this was a fun experience. It was not once again, like everything I'm saying from like this point on, this was a fun game. It was just not one of my favorites for the year. We are almost at our top 10, which is going to be very interesting for a lot of people, for me. But just going to go ahead and move on. As I said, I enjoyed it. I actually played a run or two off stream just to get a few more trophies. I don't think I'll be platinum the game because I'm not doing suicide mode. I'm not that type of gamer. Number 16. We have the expanded version of Rip and Tear. We have... Are you going to take up the whole screen? No, good. I don't know why Doom took up like that much screen space. I don't understand that. But we have Doom Eternal. We have the sequel to the story that started in 2016. The Doom Slayer returns to Earth to stop the denizens of Hell from taking over, as well as having to fight angels that are kind of reaping the balance, so to speak, of the realm. And it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be, it's time for humans extinction or something like that. I think it's been a while since that was like a game that we played back in February or March last year. Don't remember the exact story. I just remembered this had a much more dynamic gameplay than the original one. It was a lot like playing rock, paper, scissors with a lot of the enemies, because certain enemies were weak to this weapon but might be strong to this one. So you kind of have to rotate your weapons constantly to be in the right foray for each fight, which made it a lot more dynamic and interesting in my opinion. But with compared to other games, this one was fun. The difficulty spiked up a lot in certain areas, and then also it was just too much at certain points. So this was not, it was a good game. It was nowhere near my favorite from last year. You can probably take a wild guess what my favorite game from last year, but we'll get to that when we get to it. All right, next up. No, it's not for everybody. I will admit that. Next up, with number 15, we have the first Darksiders. I really enjoyed this game. It's not the best in the series. We have two more ahead of this, in my opinion. But the gameplay was tight. It felt like a modern adaptation, a modern, more adult adaptation of the Legend of Zelda game. The characters were great. The voice acting is great. Yes, War is the main character in 1. He's also one of the main characters in Genesis, which we'll get to in just a few more. It's a little farther ahead. But it's a great story of, and actually a great retelling and change for the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, because everyone always puts the Horsemen as it's the end of the world. These are the ones that are bringing the end of the world to our realm, pretty much, in terms of the Battle of Heaven and Hell. So we're not exactly. I don't remember how they're played out in, say, in the Bible. I can't remember if they're in the Bible. I actually have never read the Bible all the way through. I can't remember if there's a reference to them or not, but I love references in media where it's like something that's supposed to be inherently evil to a lot of people are actually like the judgment, or they're the people that they're the pretty much like the police force of. What the hell was this doing? Sorry, I had a cord stuck around my chair very weirdly. Get a little higher. There we go. But War is the stoic, like, I must follow my code to the nth degree type character, and I love his aesthetic. Liam O'Brien did a great job with the voice acting of this character, both in here and in Genesis, which will come up later. But then you also have Mark Hamill playing the little shadow figure character that's like shackled him. You have some great puzzle elements. You have back and forth situations between, like, I need to go over here to get this item, but I need this item first. So it's a classic Zelda style game, but with a lot more brutality and a much better cast than a lot of the other Zelda games. As much as I said, like, I know you want like Legend of Zelda, like, you don't want him to talk. We've heard him talk before. You don't want you don't want Link to talk. We've heard what Link sounds like when he talks. Thank you, Sega CDI. I don't want that to ever happen again. But having a character like War be the main character and have this style of gameplay, you got attached to him real quickly. So I appreciate this game a lot. This was actually one of the first games we beat last year, and I loved every minute of it. This was a great experience last year. I'm kind of sad I'm on a pace not up to what we did last year. It's been a little rough this year to do certain things, so I'm not going to complain, but I'm wishing I had more time to play more games and beat more games. But everything that I've played this year, I've beaten. Like all three Spyro games, Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales, Exit 8. So, oh, excuse me, princess. Yeah, this sure is boring around here. Oh, no, like, thank you, CDI, for making us never want to hear him talk again. But I do want to beat a few more games. We're almost at the halfway point, and what are we at? Are we at 16 or 17 for the year? We're at 16. Okay, so my count was right. Alright. I was counting the other day, like, how many have I beat? But we will get a few more done in the next, like, month or so, because I have a few games that I figure shouldn't take too long to beat. But I'm gonna try and mix in some other stuff. Some games will take longer, but it's also the fact some games take longer to beat, some games take shorter to beat. I don't have as much time to stream as I did last year, so I'm kind of mixing in things as I go. But I just like playing and having fun and being able to talk with people. That's the main reason for streaming. Where was I? 14? Oh, I forgot. These were back to back as well. Run away! There we go. Sorry. Once again, my notebook is trying to run away from me. So next up, we have the sequel. I was gonna go ahead and say it. Oh yeah, I don't like that I had... Do I have better art? No. Okay. Alright, next up, because it's actually just a game, I like having some sort of, like... I like having the game art, but I don't want the box on it. That's just me. But next up for 14, we have... that is 14, right? we have Darksiders 2. So this is the expansion of the story directly from 1, but it takes place between the introduction of 1 and when you actually start playing in 1. So this play takes place after the initial aspect of the apocalypse that war arrives in and actually is framed for, and before you go out to take on the demons and such at the beginning, in your run through Dark Souls or Darksiders 1, you play as your brother Death, who goes into the land. I can't remember what the realms are, but it's like different areas and aspects of seasons, realms, lands, and you're trying to find a way to save the souls of Earth in order to pretty much relieve your brother of his crime, which he did not commit. And you find out he did not commit through all the adventures in the second game, or the first game, excuse me. But this one updated the gameplay. Instead of how the first one was, say, like a God of War mature game mixed with The Legend of Zelda. Grab my water. Still not 100%, but I feel a lot better. But this one was a gritty adult version of, say, like a Prince of Persia game from Ubisoft. So you're a lot faster. You can have a lot more agile. You're a lot more agile in your platforming and everything else like that. So there was a faster pace character. You could change your weapons because you could choose to upgrade your character's equipment any way you want. So you could have a speed weapon and then switch to a hammer. You could have dual gloves and then switch to like a heavy blade or any sort of thing like that. But overall, this was a lot tighter than the first one. So I love War as a character. He's kind of a lot more memorable. But the sarcasticness of Death in this game was like spot on. Like, I love him as a character. War Strife is still the best. I'm gonna just say that Strife is still the best character. But this was an amazing experience for this genre of the game, because 1 and 2 are similar, 3 goes on the Souls route, and then Darksiders 4, which is Genesis, I'm gonna just call that, is a completely different style of game. But we're gonna get to that one later because that was my favorite out of the 4. But Darksiders 2, it was a fun game. Fast paced, energetic, lots of side quests in this one, which was something that was nice compared to 1 and 3. But overall, yeah, I'll place it at number 14. Load, thank you. We are almost to our top 10, or my top 10, because this is my list. Number 13. Okay. One of the most confusing but enjoyable experiences from last year. Where are you? There you are. Number 13, we have Dredge. This was a game that, for me, came out of nowhere, but as soon as I saw it, I wanted it. I love I love the aesthetic that the art of this game did. I loved the appeal of the fishing. I know some people that sounds weird, but I love the fact that it was a cozy game mixed with like an existential horror aspect, which was, it sounds so weird, but it mixes so well together. They did an amazing job with this game, because I could go out, I could just have fun fishing, or I could go out and do the story and actually the side missions and everything else like that. The twists and the like uncomfortable elements of this game, I think, is what gave it its charm. And I can't wait to see like if they do anything. It was such a weird game, but it was, in my opinion, this was one of the best original games to come out last year. Like an indie developed game type situation. I'm actually happy what won last year, and actually we will be playing that on the channel because I do have Sea of Stars now, so that will be coming up on the channel somewhat in the future. I don't know when exactly, but that'll be coming up. But this was one of my favorite experiences last year, because it's so counter everything. Like, I go out, I fish, I'm relaxing, I'm comfortable, I'm learning things because my character can like read a book while we're just going out and exploring the waves and everything. But then there's some but then there's something hidden under the waves that you're not familiar with, that you don't know what's going on. And it's such a change that it's just like, I don't know how I feel about this. But as I said, I enjoyed this game a lot. It is weird, but it is up there for me for like one of my favorite experiences from last year. All right, here's one of your favorites coming up. And I can't say it's not one of my favorites as well, because now it's one of my favorite overall gaming universes. We have the Herald of Darkness. No, not yet. That's the second one. But we have Alan Wake at number 12. I was always interested in playing this. It was never on the PlayStation 4 ever. It was a PC and Xbox exclusive, and then they brought it over. You really think you know me well in this? Oh yeah, I love Alan Wake. I would not mind playing this again. I want to get Hyphen to play this with me and have her co-pilot so we can get the collectibles. But that's up to her. I'm not gonna make her. I'm not gonna make her rush into this. But this was such a great story experience. Remedy is amazing at giving you like the little like hints and tidbits of everything going on, but not giving you the full story. And I loved every aspect of this game. Alan Wake 2, which is going to be technically it's going to be in for next year's account, even though I played it through most of this year and had one stream going to 2024, but I beat the game in 2024, not in 2023. So Alan Wake 2 is not on this list. But Alan Wake was just one of those, like, this is not a horror game. It is unsettling, it can be disturbing, but this one, compared to its sequel, is not a horror title, but it is so just, you feel the characters, you feel the emotions, you feel the writing, you feel the music, because Old Gods of Asgard kick ass in this, in all the Remedy games. But top 12, it almost broke the top 10 for me. There's just a few games that I find ahead of this one, just because of the genre that I fell in love with. I actually fell in love with last year. So, number 12 for me, Alan Wake. It is such a great story experience. This will always be one of my favorite story-driven games, in my opinion. Because you live the story that keeps unfolding right in front of you. You get little tidbits of everything that's about to come to you, but you never know 100% what's coming up to you. Alright, last game before our top 10. Or my top 10. As I said, if you have... no, not that one. There we go. Number 11, for me. I appreciate you being through most of that experience with me. Dark Souls 3, especially sticking with me through dying to what, 2.5 hours of the Abyss Watchers, which I found out afterwards I did too early. I wasn't supposed to go that way. Ugh. Now I know which way to go, and I actually beat them on the first try because I did a whole other area before I did that. But I digress, right? But Dark Souls 3 was... Oops. Dark Souls 3 was the expansion and the learning experience and the growth that I wanted from the original Dark Souls. As I said, I tried one stream of Dark Souls 2, just felt wrong. Like, something was different between Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 to the point where it's like, I don't like this. Dark Souls 1 to Dark Souls 3, it's similar, but it's the upgrades and the quality of life attributes. So like the movement's different, so it's faster paced, but it still has the ability to be defensive if you want to be. But the aspects of each of these was just so well done compared to the first one. but not as good as some of the other games that are going to be coming up later for me. So, Dark Souls 3 is our last game before our top 10. I'm going to break down the top 10 a little bit more for why I'm going to be placing them where I am, just because these are my game. So, like, all these games, these are games I beat that I'm putting them where I put them. The next games coming up are my, like, games of the year. Before we do this, I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, the 5 or 6 games that we started but did not beat. 3 of them I'm not going back to. 2 of them I'm definitely meaning to go back and finish or restart, because I was meaning to do them and I just got sidetracked. So, the game I'm not going back to, and you've told me not to go back to, I don't have images of this, I'm just going to say them, Curses and Chaos. I have a feeling you watching me struggle for 3.5 hours on one stage, I literally could feel you be like, stop doing this to yourself, don't go back to this. And I played it off stream, and additional 3 or 4 hours I made like 1 or 2 more stages, and there's like 10. So yeah, Curses and Chaos, not going back to. Dangerous Golf, it just got a little tedious, so we're not going to go back to that one. If you want to see me blow things up with a golf ball, you can let me know. We'll do like little one-offs and stuff of it, but I'm not going to make it a series again. Skyforce Anniversary, or whichever one I was playing on stream, it just got tedious, and it's a lot of grinding to unlock levels, I found out. So I'm not going to do that on stream, and I don't really feel like doing it off stream. And then the 2 games that I know I started last year and I need to go back to them are The Darkest Dungeon, which I made it the farthest I've ever made it in that game, so I need to try and go back and do some more. I need to be careful not to have my characters die, and especially not to have you guys die, because I do have characters named after you. And then the game I'm going to restart, because I kind of figured out how to play it, and I want to make sure I do the character interactions correctly, is Marvel Midnight Suns. So at some point I will be going back to those this year. I did enjoy that one. I actually like for me personally, I like the card and strategy aesthetic. And I loved the getting to know the superheroes inside the villa aspect. It reminds me of the classic X-Men Legends or Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. So now, after all that, we have load. We have our top 10. Yeah, each of these I wrote down like a page per game, except for number 1, which has 2 pages. And we're gonna break these down little by little. So number 10 for me, a game that I wanted to love and ended up loving. It's not my favorite game of the year, but I ended up loving. You guys were excited you guys started really loving it when I started playing it. I know you were a little iffy on it just because you weren't sure about it, but Returnal is such a great mind trip. The horror aspect is a roguelike horror. What did I say? Roguelike horror set on an alien world. You are a stranded astronaut that's trying to find a way out, but is caught in a time loop or a death loop. Yeah, the aspect, everything about this game was spot on. The graphics, the sound, just everything, the combat. Oh, you sold your PS5? I'm sorry. I think there's a Steam version of this, if you can get it on the computer. I don't think my computer could handle this personally, but this was an amazing experience. It is beautifully designed. You get the aspect of like aura and dread throughout this entire game, either from the graphics, the sound effects, the enemy designs. Everything is just so amazingly done. And then the them using a actual classic rock song to progress the story, and you have no idea why until the end. is just such a big story element that I am so impressed with what they did with this game. So, Returnal for me, number 10. It was a great experience. I loved every moment of this. I definitely feel like I could go back. I mean, I have a friend on Nostromo's that actually does this once per year. They go in, they delete their save data, so it's a fresh start. And honestly, I don't see that as a bad thing. I just restarted a Sackboy Adventure off stream for fun. That would be another game I would play on stream, but I have to delete the data just so we get the full story. But that's a game that I want to actually play off stream, so I'll get back to that one later for the channel. But I'm gonna play that one, try and beat it, so I can not look like an idiot on stream completely. But Returnal, this was a fantastic experience. As I said, graphics are great, audio's great. Combat is spot on. Like, you were there for me in the moments where it was like, I'm fighting something and something's behind me, and I'm using the audio to figure out where the attack is coming from, and I'm dodging based on the audio and what's in front of me at the same time. So this game had nearly perfect elements of audio, sound, combat, graphic design, and everything else like that. Was it my favorite of the year? No. That's why it's at number 10. But I can respect it, and I loved every moment of it. Number 9 is our other wife quit game of the year. Does this game have great graphics? No. Did it need great graphics? No. I'm pretty sure you know which game's coming up. Oh, by the way. Sorry. Next up, for number 9, we have Shadows over Loathing. This is one of those games that's like once in a lifetime kind of like attributes. It is a game that does not need to be graphically impressive, but it was still well made graphically. It was 2D. It was a 2D animated game. It was stick figures, but that's not what you came for the game for. You came for the hilarity. You came for the well-written story. You came for the very actually difficult combat compared to West of Loathing. The combat in this game was very difficult compared to its predecessor, but it was still fair in a way, because you would lose. Say you lost a battle, you went in. It's like, oh, we're gonna up. You're gonna either get a benefit or you're gonna get a handicap to the rest of your day, and you had to find ways to counteract the things that do happen, the negative things that happen to you. You had to find a way to buff yourself. You have ways to do that in each day that you go through, but just everything about this game was so well made, so well written. I would gladly play this again with Hyphen just for fun, and we might do that and try a different character style, because we played as the I forgot what the name of the exact class was, but we played as the musician. But this was such an experience. Actually, no, we beat the game. Jazz Agent, thank you. We beat the game, we lost, but we had a storyline ending, so we still counted it as a finished game for the challenge. But we never did beat the boss. I'll have to talk to her about that to see about going through it. You actually had to go through, because we stuck with the goblin through the entire game and didn't train any of the other sidekicks. And actually, we missed 2 of the sidekicks to pick up. Yeah, we got to the big boss and lost, but we lost because we didn't train up everyone. You actually need to go through and train up all of your side characters, because they fight with you at the end. And we actually missed recruiting 2, and we didn't train anybody but I think it's Gabby. Yeah, Gabby is best girl, but if you don't train up everyone, you can't beat the boss, because the boss will just take out everyone in one shot. Also, apparently we had Gabby at max level, and we had most of our stuff maxed out, and we didn't even know it. But this was a great experience. I would not mind replaying it. With some of the knowledge that we have now, we could actually progress and get things better, and we would be able to do probably beat the final boss a little bit easier. Yeah, you have to train Gabby, you have to train Ollie, you have to train I've forgotten some of the other we have the machine gun girl, we have you actually recruit the girl from the robotics club, and we didn't know until after we had finished up. But that was actually one of my favorite experiences with the robotics stuff, because I was just like, I had that moment where I was like, well, if you do this, it's just gonna do this, and everyone's like, wait, what? And I did it, and everyone's like, yay! It was just like, I feel smart. But Shadows Over Loathing, you don't need great graphics to make an amazing game. That is the one key element of this game that I will always put out, is you want to make there's all these AAA games, there's like, we're pushing the envelopes of graphics, and it's like, okay, so how's the gameplay? How's the entertainment value? And like, I brought it up with one of the games over in our list during the PlayStation stuff that we were talking about. Order 1886. It is still one of the most beautiful games ever made, but it is mostly a quick time event simulator through like 2/3 of the game, unfortunately. So they didn't think about the graphic or the gameplay elements. They were just trying to push the envelope of the PS4, which is amazing because it still looks better than some PS5 games. I will give them credit for that. But something like this, beating out all these other games that have like high fidelity graphics, fast gameplay, and everything else, and look at where Shadows Over Loathing is. It's in my top 10 because the writing, the characters, the entertainment, the humor, everything about this game, they knew what they wanted to do and they did it. So Shadows Over Loathing, you are my number 9. No, I actually completely agree with that statement. And actually, one of the big titles that comes out every year, and actually I don't play it just because I find it redundant to buy the same game every year. Call of Duty is in hot water because of what it did last year. Yeah, no, so a limitation on that is very true. The fog in Resident Evil, or fog in Silent Hill, was because they couldn't program everything to be seen at once. So they wanted the elements where it's like things would load in slowly, but because of that, it made the game terrifying. I don't know how the fog is going to be implemented with the new remake they're doing. It really does depend on. Actually, I'm gonna put it out there with hardware limitations or other thing. One of the scariest games, and I still have not gone back to it, is called Uncanny Valley. I got it on the PlayStation 4 for free with a PlayStation Plus, like 2017 or something like that. I have not gone back to it because it terrifies me, and it is a 8-bit or 16-bit horror game. Tell me how graphics are needed to scare me. They're not. The game just makes me uncomfortable. The game terrifies me with the audio. It is just a different experience with each thing that you do. But I'm not going to go into the actually I will, with what you're saying with the limitations and innovation and everything else like that, going in a different direction. Call of Duty right now, which I don't buy just because I don't want the same game over and over and over again, is in hot water this year, especially because of the campaign mode from last year only lasting about 3 to 4 hours, which means the game was essentially, you're paying $60-$70 for the multiplayer, pretty much. And the fact that this year they finally have competition from Ubisoft in a game called XDefiant, which, guess what, is the same gameplay of Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Call of Duty Warzone, but free. So Call of Duty now, if they want to get their fan base to actually pay out the money, needs to do something innovative in their series, which is something they haven't done in years. But that's neither here or there. We're talking about the games that we enjoyed last year. And we're actually getting... I'm hoping you agree with... Well, you can agree, you can disagree. It's this type of situation, but I hope you agree with where I'm placing a bunch of these. Number 8 for me, Ghostwire Tokyo. I know a lot of people said there's like a whole thing online I was like looking into. It's like people rating this game low, people saying this game was boring. I loved this game. I loved running around Tokyo or doing the things that we were doing in Tokyo, fighting the demons and everything. And I love the fact that it's a first-person shooter action game, but it's using mysticism and magic instead of just like, I have a gun and I'm gonna shoot this thing in the head. No, I'm gonna use I'm gonna use a wind element to just constantly fling stuff at this enemy until they disappear. And then, like, the story for me in this was actually very well done. I love the acting in this game. I thought this was great. Hyphen loves this game. We were playing this on the side for a long time. We got lost. We stopped playing it around the 3rd act, so eventually we'll go back to this. We're trying to 100% it off stream to see what the... Apparently there's an additional cutscene. If you, like, rescue, like, all 100% of the souls. I think when we ended my stream, we were at, like, 92. And it was just being, like, a bunch of nitpick points. But I love this game. It was just a fun experience for me. I know you enjoyed it, because you stuck with me through the entire thing, even when I got lost. And getting lost in Tokyo was just a lot of fun in the game. So, kudos to, unfortunately, I would say kudos to the company, but unfortunately it's been dissolved. This was unfortunately one of Microsoft's fumbles of the year. They closed Tango Gameworks for obviously no... Yeah, Microsoft closed Tango Gameworks this year for fumbling with sales, even though they shadow dropped the game that won Game Awards last year. I'll be right back. Yeah, so because Microsoft's fiscally did not produce what they wanted to last year, they closed 5 studios over the last month. 3 of them were not very well known to me. I don't know exactly what they were working on. But then 2 of them, Tango Gameworks got axed because Hi-Fi Rush did not fiscally generate revenue like it wanted to. But Microsoft shadow dropped the game with no advertising, and it was a Game 1 Xbox Game Pass launch, so no one had to buy the game itself. Oh, hey, welcome in. Yo, get your work done, Lethal. Welcome in. We're just talking about the games that we beat last year. But yeah, Tango Gameworks unfortunately is no more, and one of the Arcane studios is no more. The one that worked on Redfall, even though they were working on like a lot of quality of life upgrades for the game, as well as expansions for the game, because they wanted to actually make the game work. Even though that was not the game they wanted to make, Microsoft forced Arcane to make Redfall. And they closed the studio Tango Gameworks who made Hi-Fi Rush, but then they're complaining they don't have enough companies in their business that makes intricate original indie style games for the company, but then they closed the company that made an intricate, well-designed indie game that actually won awards. So I don't know. I know I'm going on a tangent. I knew I was going to go on a tangent when this came up, because this company I felt was doing so great and was doing so well, and then Microsoft just closed it for petty situations. Sorry, rant over. But yeah, I thought Ghostwire was an amazing experience from last year. So I really, really enjoyed that game. And here we go. Now it's my favorite, Darksiders. Number 7, we have Darksiders Genesis. I know, like, everyone's saying, yeah, but the graphics of this one, it's like, the graphics of this game are fine. The gameplay is what some people have an issue with. I love isometric action games, so things like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, X-Men Evolution, or X-Men, I think it's Evolution? No. Whichever one is the isometric RPG, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, any game like that. Deadly Tower Monsters was the same thing. But any game that's like that, I really actually enjoy that gameplay. I thought the graphics in this were solid, the puzzles were solid, the voice acting was mwah. You had Liam O'Brien come back to reprise his War. I don't remember the person who played Strife, but he was perfect as Strife in this. The boss battles were amazing. The boss music, or just the music in general in this game, this was probably one of my top 3 soundtracks of last year, because that music blew me away with how gorgeous or how energizing it was. This was one of my favorite games of last year. It took me forever to beat this game just because I kept going back, and I wanted to level up the characters. I didn't know I had to, like, level up my characters in different aspects in order to, like, get those bonuses and everything. But once I started learning that, I started having even more fun because I wasn't dying as much. But let's see, what else did I write about? Covers the limits. Each biome level has its own personality in terms of enemies and traps. Boss designs are well known. Yeah, that's it. If I play Darksiders Genesis again, I want to play it multiplayer. Probably once again with my brother, because he also enjoys playing the multiplayer games like this. All right, number 6 coming up. Another one of your favorite games, and I have a reason it is this low in terms of the top 10, and justified or not, I find it justified or not, there's a reason why it is not higher on the list for me. Number 6 from last year, Shadow of the Colossus. This was an absolutely amazing experience. The enemy designs, each one being its own boss, but each one being technically its own level. This was an incredible gameplay experience. The story being completely untold, or being told through a non-direct instances. You learned what's going on just through the music, through how the game made you feel emotionally. But that was the issue with the game being this at this point. This is nearly a perfect game in every aspect. The issue I have with it being nearly perfect is I will never experience this game the exact same way I did the first time ever again. A lot of the games in my top 5 are all games where I could go in and I could play them over and over and over again. I will still get the adrenaline rush. I will still get the emotional aspect. This game, once you play it for the first time, that's that feeling. I will never have the awe-inspired, like, oh my gosh, I feel this type like, I feel this way about this game so much. I will never have that feeling again in that way. Like, we'll get into the top 5 in a moment and you'll understand why I'm saying it this way. Shadow of the Colossus is an amazing experience, but it's the defining moment of the game makes it so I never feel the same way about this game again. Unfortunately, I will never have this first experience again. So this amazing experience is an amazing experience, and I might be able to share this with somebody who I might be able to share that experience with someone else. That's a how dare you place it this low? No, I'm not saying the game is bad at all. It's just, whereas the next few games that are going to come up, I can play and I can have, it's not a first experience high, but I can still feel like, oh, I love how this game makes me feel. This one, I will never have that moment of like, jaw drop when I see when I see one of the Colossi for the first time, or how I felt when you're betrayed at the end of the game type situation. Yeah, so like you can never have that true first experience yourself. You can watch somebody else have that experience and see how they react to it. There's actually someone recently on TikTok I was watching. Um, she has thalassophobia, and it was her reaction to the two underwater colossi, and I was just like, this is legitimate for how someone would react to this. And I was just like, wow, I never thought about it like that before. But it didn't hit me the same way because I've seen this Colossus before. It didn't hit me the same way that I did. I was just experiencing how this person was reacting to it. So, Shadow of the Colossus, it is a great game. Masters of level design, because each of those bosses are their own levels and puzzles in their own right. But I'm never going to experience this game the same way again. If I were to play this with Hyphen, I would get her reactions to see how she would feel about it, but it still wouldn't be my experience. So that's the reason why this one is only at level 6, or at number 6. We are approaching the top 5. It has been a journey. All right, now we're getting into my hand-picked favorites. Are they the best games on this list? No. Now we're just getting into they're my favorites, and I could play them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Number 5, we have Control. Back to Remedy. This was the biggest power trip of the year. I love Control. The amount of things that you can do, you can levitate things, you can blow things up with your mind, you can levitate, you can do all the things you could think of in like a superhero or like a just like superhuman style power situation. But you still have limitations, you still have weaknesses. The bosses, while some of them are weird, make sense. This is always going to be one of my favorite games. I can go back and I can play this a bunch of times and I will still love all the experiences. But the thing that got me for this time is I actually did everything. My first playthrough, I missed like 3 or 4 complete areas, so I never experienced some of the bosses. I never got some of the abilities. I never got to experience the rush of some of the things that I had. And the big thing for me, I never played Alan Wake my first time playing this. So the linking of the two stories together was an incredible experience for me, especially for the first time. I think you noticed the one time where my jaw dropped because one of the interviews with Jesse Faden mentioned Thomas Zane from the Alan Wake games, who had somehow wiped himself out of existence. So how did she know who he was? And then Thomas Zane is brought back in the DLC and the Alan Wake 2 as a slightly different character, but he was rewritten because he wrote himself out of existence. But there are certain elements now playing Control after playing Alan Wake made this experience so much better, even on top of how much I already love this game. So the voice acting's great, the gameplay's great. The level designs, while somewhat bizarre, it's supposed to be like an MC Escher moving like structure type environment. This is always going to be one of my favorite games. This is an incredible experience. I had to put it at 5 though, compared to the other 4 games coming up, because as I said, I've already beaten this game before, so I cannot put this one higher than the other ones, because this was a great experience, but it wasn't a new great experience for me. So number 5, Control. I definitely will go back and play some of these games again. Alan Wake 2 will be in top 5 next year. I said it before when we were discussing Alan Wake 1. I did not beat Alan Wake 2 in 2023. I beat Alan Wake 2, technically the final episode was in 2024. So, no, you're fine. But yeah, Alan Wake 2 would... I literally had this list saying I had a tie for number 1. And then I was like, well, technically I didn't beat this one in 2023, so I can't actually have it in 2023. In my head, I couldn't have it in 2023. Number 4, we have a gorgeous and difficult game. Actually, that's most of the... Actually, all these in the top 4 are gorgeous and difficult. Number 4, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Probably the most difficult game in the From Software catalog, at least that I've played, because it's you either learn the combat or you die. I think I said that. It dives in the access to the implementation of the Japanese lore mythology is absolutely stunning with what they were able to do. The number of mini bosses, the number of major bosses in this game was actually staggering compared to this game was not very long once you actually look into it. It's just the amount of stuff that you could do in that time frame was just like let's see. The acting in this game was actually very, very well done using Japanese cast. For this game, of course, you want to kind of do that, but it used the audio and the voice acting from this cast seemed far better than a lot of the acting done in the previous From Software games. Not that the Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne, which we're going to get to in a moment, was bad, but this one just fit a lot better because of the casting that they were using. Now, as I said, this is probably From Software's hardest game, but when the game clicked, it was the most satisfying thing to be able to beat some of these bosses by just parrying and then putting them in a state that was like counterproductive to what they were doing. It was horrifying in some of the aspects, especially with the Guardian Ape boss fight. It was stunning, especially with that dragon boss fight. It was over the top and hard, especially with the Great Owl and the Ishin fight. The Ishin fight is still probably going to be one of my favorite accomplishments. Not just like from last year, but in general, because considering Ishin is considered one of the hardest boss fights ever made, which is funny because I still haven't beaten a boss in Bloodborne. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna ever beat that one just because he's really difficult and erratic. Ishin I could plot. There's a character in Bloodborne that I still have not beaten just because he is completely erratic and unpredictable in certain ways. So, I loved it. Great game. All these other games, the last few games all kind of follow a similar vibe to these ones. It's just I hit a genre or a type of game last year that I was like, this is now my favorite. Number 3. Absolutely gorgeous game. Great gameplay. Amazing voice acting. Amazing music, especially because of this company. We have Hades. This was top tier, no matter what. You love the characters, you love the music. The combat is fine-tuned and fast. The amount of progression and like replayability this game has is like near to none. But this was a absolutely outstanding experience. You play as the son of Hades himself, trying to escape the underworld to find... I don't know if I should actually just give the story on stream, because, I mean, like, people have watched my stream, you know what you're doing, but if people just walk in and all of a sudden like, oh no, I've been spoiled, is that going to be an issue? But you play as Zagreus, the young demigod son of Hades, trying to escape the underworld for his own purposes. But Supermassive Games, no, not Supergiant Games, excuse me. Supermassive is the one who does Until Dawn and such. But Supergiant Games this is probably, well, I haven't played the second one yet. I need to play the sequel. That'll probably come up later. But Hades, this is like the best currently Supergiant game. Gameplay, characters, voice acting, music, like this is like the epitome of everything they did perfectly in their series. And I've actually wrote down, this was a game, this one and the next game were one of the two games I'm most proud of beating, like the main story last year, because for this one I didn't have it for very long. The game came out in 2020. It should have won Game of the Year that year, but it this was a game I restarted 5 to 6 times in that span, and I just couldn't get anything done to a certain point. But then this time I was like, I'm going to sit down, I'm actually going to beat this game, and I did, which is reminiscent to our number 2 as well, which is on where is it? Where is it? There you are. Number 2. If you love Soulsborne games, it is considered most people's number 1 on the list, and now for me, directly from Software. Oh, I can understand that. Playing it though is like just like a complete like adrenaline rush to play that game. Like my top 5 games, they were all games that like gave me adrenaline as I was playing it in different ways. Control was just like had the feeling of being overpowered. Sekiro, you felt like being an unstoppable samurai through Japanese folklore. Hades, you were literally a demigod that was being held by the Greek gods of Olympus in order to fight your quest. This one, you are a skilled hunter that must traverse the nightmare of the hunt and survive. This one is my number 2, not just because of how much I actually enjoyed this game, but also because for me personally, this wasn't a personal endeavor. This was the first game I ever did a video for back in 2016 on my channel. And for years, I just could not figure out the gameplay and the combat system, and I could not get past the second boss. And I finally watched a video of like someone who actually is good at the gameplay, and all of a sudden it just click, and I was able to not only beat the game in a few sessions, I messed up, had to restart the game off stream, and got back to the point I was at with the correct choices in the game to get the true final ending, which is what I wanted to get in the game. So I have, since playing this game, I've actually beaten this game twice. So this game is up there for just like an enjoyment and a satisfaction when you actually understand how the game works. But we know what our number 1 is. It's very similar to this game, but I was hyped for this game. I played the game. It did not disappoint me. Yeah, I thought so. My number 1 game of last year, my game of the year, you enjoyed watching me struggle through it. And I absolutely adored every single moment of it. It had so much that you could do with the game. I actually had 4 files of the game going while I was streaming because I didn't want to pass where I was in the stream, but I kept wanting to play it so badly. Lies of P was my number 1 game last year. It was such an experience for me personally. I loved this game so much. I thought the characters were great. I thought the environments were amazing. And actually, I have not played it on New Game Plus. You get more story by playing New Game Plus because you retain the puppet doctrine or whatever it was that you get from Geppetto at the end of the game, where you can understand the puppets talking. And you know how when you were in the fights with the puppets, there was that gibberish at the bottom of the screen and you couldn't understand what was going on? On New Game Plus, it translates it. And some of those messages are heartbreaking, actually. Especially the one against the Puppet King, because as we find out through the story, the Puppet King is your best friend from your previous life. And he's actually trying to protect and defend you from Geppetto in the game. And he's trying in that sequence to say, please remember me. I'm only trying to help you, as you're literally killing him, unfortunately. Because you don't remember, because you're still just a puppet. Trying to regain your memories of what happened in the past. I have seen that sequence. I haven't played it yet. I know. But this was such an amazing game. People have been requesting a game like Lies of P because they want a updated version of Bloodborne. They don't want a sequel necessarily, but they want like a remake to update the game speed, update the graphics, update some of the aspects of the game that will make it more of a quality of life situation. But this is the game that scratched most people's itch last year, and the game did so well, and with what we saw at the ending of the game, they already have a sequel lined up. I don't know exactly how it's going to play, but they do have a sequel of Lies of P lined up to come out in the future already. Which, congratulations to NeoWiz for making an incredible game experience. This was the best Souls game I played last year, and I beat everything but Elden Ring, which will come up in the future. That'll be one of the next few games I play, because I want to get through all those games and have an experience with those. Probably by the time I play it, the DLC for Elden Ring will come out, so I can just do everything at once. But this was my game of the year last year. Like, hands down. Nothing to me was better than Lies of P. If I'm playing a game on stream and I'm starting it over on another file to continue playing it, that's how much I was stuck on it. I had calluses on 2 of my fingers from the block and the attack button because I was playing it so like aggressively, because I wanted to beat certain bosses. The unnamed puppet, or the whatever the true final boss was of this game, that was something that that was one of my favorite fights of last year. The Simon boss can kiss my ass. That one infuriated me. I loved the unnamed puppet, or whatever the last boss was, and I actually, as much as it was a pain in the butt, I loved the Luxatia fight from last year, or from Lies of P. I do think I should do a run where I either try, not only try a different build, but also try to, we got the medium ending when we played. There's actually a true ending that we didn't get, and there's a bad ending. So we could try to do some runs where we, try to get through real quick and get the bad ending, and then we could also try and go through and get the true ending, because the true ending, you actually become a real boy. We were this close to getting it. I made one wrong decision, actually. But this was my favorite game of last year. Right now, number 1 for this year is probably, as of right now, Alan Wake 2 for 2024. But we will make a list of that. I don't know if we'll get up to as many this many games from last year. Right now we're on par to get about 35 games done, unless we work in some quick games, which I can always choose to. But this was my list of last year, ending with my favorite game of last year, which made me sad because it wasn't up for any awards. It was a niche game. I understand why. And I knew even if it was in the running for Game of the Year, it was not going to win. This was not going to beat Baldur's Gate 3. after trying out Baldur's Gate 3. I am glad you would watch. So if I replayed Lies of P, two things. I would probably do New Game Plus mode so that we could try to 100% the game, because you can't 100% the game on one playthrough. Actually, you need three playthroughs to 100% anyway, because you got to get the three endings. But you have to collect all the music, and some of the music only unlocks in New Game Plus. So we would have to play New Game Plus in order to do that, but you would get the expanded story with each of the puppets, and then anything else of that manner. So I would gladly do some more playthroughs of this, but I do want to get some other stuff done on the side. If we replayed this, I don't know if I would count it as on the challenge. Well, if I gave myself a challenge to incorporate the game, that would change it to being slightly different. So we'll come to that later. But I'm gonna give my voice a quick break. I will be back on roughly an hour or so. Since I have a longer time to stream, I'll probably go back to Spider-Man so we can work on that. And I'm gonna implement a new thing for Spider-Man. I'm not gonna work on side quests unless they are in my path. So I'm not gonna go like drastically out of my way to find things. But if it's I'm going to here, and there's a bunch of little things in my path, I'm going to go ahead and take care of those just so we can get them out of the way and not have to worry about them later on. But I'm not going to do what I did last time, where it's like, I'm going to go to this part far away in the map and make sure I ping everything. If I have to go out there, I'll go out there. If I'm missing something towards the end, I will do that. But I'm going to go through, and we're going to try to work our way through more of the story than trying to find side quests and everything else. So if side quests pop up, we will do it. Otherwise, we're going to start working on story more because I do want to progress this. I do want to keep things moving instead of having it be a little more stagnant. That with this, how I feel like the last stream was, because it was literally like, I'm swinging and I'm not doing anything. But give me a little moment to rest my throat up a little bit. I've been talking for almost 2 hours straight. I did enjoy this though. This is finally a little breakdown of everything from last year. Let me know if you would like me to break down certain games and actually rate them, like in terms of like how I feel about like I give this game a this out of 10 because this is how I feel about them. This was literally me breaking down. So like I literally have some games like in like the top 20 that were like 9.5 out of 10, but they're not in my top 10 because they didn't give me the experience of what I wanted. This was more of like my favorite over like me justifying like a game being a 10 out of 10 or something like that. So but I do appreciate you dropping in. Lethal, thank you dropping in for the lurk for this one. I will be back on after some lunch and giving myself a chance to rest my voice, and I will see you all in a little bit. So have a great day, have a great afternoon, see you in about an hour or so.